Maybe just to start real quick. So Dan, have you ever, on a real high level then, there's two different SBA programs really that you can utilize for owner-occupied commercial real estate. So the SBA 7A loan is generally a 75% guarantee loan that a bank just does on its own. So if you guys source a deal, maybe it had a little bit more hair on it, or maybe it was a smaller deal. Usually my program starts at roughly $1 million and goes up from there. But something like that could be a good fit for 7A. The bank does 7A all on its own and gets a 75% guarantee from the government. So that in and of itself is a big difference between 7A and what I do, which is 504. So anytime any borrower or bank or loan broker in the country wants to get involved in an SBA 504 program, there's always somebody like myself. I'm a certified development company. There's 3 here in Arizona. We just happen to be, there's like 250 nationwide, just so you have an idea. We're the largest in the country. And the last 2 years in a row, we've actually been #1 in Arizona as well. So we lend in California, Nevada, and Arizona. But the gist of our program is that the bank will do generally a 50% first mortgage. And so that's negotiable with the bank. And so sometimes Dave will come to me and be like, hey, Chris, I got this deal in California or somewhere in Arizona. Who's doing these types of deals right now? Because I kind of have my finger on the pulse of that. And a lot of real estate and loan brokers do that. They come to me and kind of say, hey, I'm not sure who to talk to on the bank side. On the flip, there's often times where the customer's like, I've got a great banking relationship with X bank and we want to use them. So sometimes that makes your job a little easier, or sometimes I guess that could take you out of the mix. The nice thing about having you guys in there is that you can kind of facilitate helping the borrower shop, as I'm sure you know, to try to find the best bank fit. So usually it'll be a bank first mortgage at 50%. On most deals, I do a 40% second mortgage. That 40% second mortgage, everybody that does a loan in a particular month gets the same exact deal. It is what it is. It's not negotiable in any way, shape, or form, which makes my job pretty easy. Right now, it's a 2.4% effective rate, and that's a 25-year fixed rate. So it's part of the reason why I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
By far an all-time low. And then obviously the borrower comes in with the difference there, which on a standard deal is 10%. Some of the nuances to that are if the borrower needs to bring an additional 5% in, and the SBA defines a startup as 2 years or less in business. Single-use properties, you guys see a fair amount. Believe it or not, self-storage is not single-use.
That's surprising.
I know. But examples of single-use can be like a hotel or surgical center. What's that? Car wash, gas station. Pretty much. Restaurants actually are not, although some banks consider them single use. Things like bowling alleys, crematories, anything that has like some permanent structure or built-in functionality around a certain type of business.
And a single-use property, basically, just for clarification, that is anything that if the tenant goes dark or the owner business goes out, it just can't be used for general purposes. It's very specific to what that use is, right?
Yeah, but like you and I have done, we've done a gymnastics, right. And so some people might think, oh, that's kind of, but the SBA does not define that as single use. So I would say always come to me, Dan, if you're looking at a property that you think, if it's not just a general industrial, retail, even a restaurant, something like that. If it's not a normal box, just come to me and I can let you know pretty quickly if it's on the list. It's also in the SOP. So the SBA actually just issued the new SOP. I'd be happy to send it to you, Dave.
Yeah, be great.
although you guys can always come to me. But the SOP kind of comes out on an annual basis, the standard operating procedure for the SBA, and it defines all this stuff. So occasionally they'll add something in on the single use list, something out, but for the most part, what we just covered is so self storage is not on that list. But if it is a single use property, it's an additional 5%. So it's just like a startup, 50, 35, 15 is often how those are structured. Now, if somebody has an existing SBA loan, 7A or 504, on, for instance, a car wash, which, again, Dave and I have looked at plenty of deals over the years where people have multiple SBA loans. If it is a single-use property that they have that SBA loan on, their next one, their second SBA loan is automatically 20%. So it's 50, 30, 20. So I can only do a 30% loan.
And talk to us about the mechanics. So
Yeah.
like
So what I do is I start first. Really, what my role is I mean, I essentially I'm a loan officer. I mean, I'm doing all the same things that a bank does, but really what I'm tasked with doing first and foremost is making sure that the project is eligible. And that, again, is something that can change from year to year depending on the SOP. So, I'll ask a lot of questions about the things that we just talked about. How long have they been in business? What exactly do they do? What other stuff do they own? How much cash do they have? Questions like this, and all those questions are geared towards really first and foremost making sure that the borrower and the business are SBA eligible. I mean, that's probably 25% of maybe 30% of what I do. It's a big chunk of what I do on a daily basis. Just having conversations with people and being like, for instance, Dan, apartment buildings, they're not eligible. Anything that has a real passive real estate investment nature to it is generally not going to be eligible. And that can include operating companies. So for instance, if you have somebody who owns a bunch of apartment buildings, but they're like, hey, I want to buy an office for my management company. Well, the first thing I'm going to ask is, are your revenues in a management company coming from managing your own properties? If so, you're not eligible. CBD or marijuana related stuff, not eligible. Obviously something that you'll probably come across a lot in this town nowadays. Yep. So, then there's some of the obvious ones like pawn shops and, anything with an adult theme and that sort of thing. There's some banks, but I would say, on the spectrum of what I look at on a daily basis, most business operations are generally eligible. Your borrower always needs to occupy at least 51% of the building. That's kind of also goes along with that passive, like, is the project really owner occupied, or are they trying to do something where they're going to drive rents? So 51% is the number we start with. If it's a ground up construction deal, it's actually 60%. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Oftentimes we'll see businesses come to us and they're like, hey, I want to build this big grandiose building, but I'm not going to be able to take it all, but I'll be able to have some tenants in there and generate some rents. And, we always drill back to cash flow from the operating company. So sometimes, we'll look at a project like that and be like, kind of biting off more than you can chew because we're not going to give you any credit for any tenant income. So 60% on ground up, 51% on a standard building. And it's generally under roof, but if the business operations are such that they are more of like for instance, like a contractor yard or a logistics facility where they park a bunch of vehicles or something like that, then we'll look at the actual plot of land and say, okay, your business is geared towards using, you need the plot of land itself, not necessarily a little building that's on it. So, we can look at the land for occupancy as well. So that's the first thing I do is eligibility. I generally will work kind of hand in hand with the bank and with you guys in gathering a financial packet. Oftentimes banks will let me kind of lead the charge on that because my list is usually a little bit longer than what they're going to want. The reason for that is that I always need any affiliate businesses that a borrower owns a majority stake in, I need to look at those financials too. And so we see that a lot in this town where somebody will come to us and be like, hey, I want to open a car wash. And by the way, I own 3 or 4 apartment buildings, and I own, a gas station and a C-store or whatever, So again, the car wash in and of itself is going to be an eligible project. But we're still going to look at, even if the stuff is not eligible, we still have to look at it as far as like, how much revenue does it drive? And the reason we're doing that is because the SBA kind of puts a cap on how big a business could be, and it's aggregate with everything that they own. You don't even have to worry about what those numbers are, I would say, because 9 out of 10 of the requests you guys are going to see are not going to be middle market and larger $100 million plus companies, which we've done $100 million plus companies. But same thing. If you're worried that they might be too big, get me involved and I can help you.
Are you running global cash flow, and do you have to have global cash flow in order for it to work, or
We will really drill down to the operating company. We want to see that the operating company can service the debt. If the operating company is short and there's a reason why, that's when we'll say, okay, well, bring us some projections.
Yeah.
We want to see how this new facility will help you grow, and you will project out cash flow. But along those same lines, if the borrower, for instance, is a big drain on the company because he or she has a lavish lifestyle and takes a lot of money out of the company, that could be impactful for us, certainly. But we're not, unlike the banks of the world, we're gonna underwrite more specifically to the operating.
And then do you do startups as well then? Can you guys do startups?
Yeah, I'm actually doing one with Wells right now. I'm doing a startup medical practice. Now, granted, it's a doc that's had a medical practice in the past.
When you said Wells Fargo, I was like, that's got to be pretty conservative.
Yeah, that's why. It's because it's one of their doctor clients.
Yeah.
So it's technically considered a startup, but yeah, I think you and I have done pure startups type stuff before. There's going to be more scrutiny, and generally we want to see that, they have some sort of background, or at least something that they've done in their history that we can parlay into, like, yeah, they can run this business. It makes sense. If you have a dog groomer coming to you and that person wants to start up, $10 million manufacturing facility or something, and they've never done anything like that, well, it needs to make sense. So, so a lot of what we do, and moving on to, me like gathering financials and then ultimately underwriting, is we really do, yes, we look at cash flow, but we tell a story too. So the story is, how is this building going to help them grow? One of the big things, Dan, that we look at is, or that the SBA cares about, is job growth. It's a job growth program. So we are kind of fortunate as a CDC. We actually have done so many of these loans over the years that we have an excess job bank. So I don't have to create a certain number of jobs per project. I can just borrow from the bank. But if you went to one of the other CDCs or even one of the banks and wanted to try to do a 7A, they're probably going to ask you, how many jobs is this project going to create? I'm still going to ask too, because it's part of my story, but I'm not going to kick a deal out because it's not creating enough jobs. And that is huge, as you know, Dave, with like car washes and that sort of things. They're big projects, but they don't create a bunch of jobs.
They don't create a lot. And it's jobs for the operating company, not just construction, essentially. So.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Specifically, like long-term, full-time, and part-time employees. So I will be underwriting the deal concurrently with the bank. Once everybody gets kind of to a point where they're feeling, pretty warm and fuzzy about the deal, we'll order, an appraisal and an environmental report. Those are generally the reports you need for an SBA real estate loan. We share those reports with the bank, so we're not having to go out and get our own or anything like that. And so once I've gathered everything and told my story, I have an underwriter. File goes to my underwriter, who one of the nice things about working with us too, as Dave can tell you, is that I have my own team. So I have a total of 4 people. There's another loan officer that kind of reports to me, and I've got an associate. I'm sorry, I have 5 people now. An associate, a processor, and an underwriter, and they're all my little team. So they underwrite all the Arizona deals, anything I've sourced in Nevada, and anything I've sourced in California. So Rob, my underwriter, will then do kind of hit, the more underwritey type stuff that I don't really know how to do. And he'll put together the presentation. It then goes to our committee. Our committee's virtual, so it's kind of nice because we don't have to get on a phone call every Thursday at 10 a.m. or whatever and review a file. We just send it out via email and generally get responses pretty quick. And then from there, once we have that portion completed in our committee approvals, we have to send the packet to the SBA. Now, because of our status with the SBA, it's not like a full file submission that a lot of people are familiar with, where the SBA is just going to basically tear it apart and rebuild it. They essentially just look at our write-up. And so it's a little bit more streamlined, but we do still have to send them the file, and they're going to see eligibility stuff, and they're going to potentially, it's happened where they've called us out on stuff. And, we feel like we have a pretty good grasp on what they're looking for, but there's times when things are missed, and there's times when rules kind of evolve. So that's really a lot of what we do, is kind of keep track of that and make sure that we're submitting clean files. We're telling you guys and the borrower what to expect. Once we get the authorization and the approval, if it's a straight purchase, our loan docs are there with the banks. We close concurrently. The bank actually, Dan, this is kind of key. The bank will do, on just a typical 90% deal, they'll do the full 90% disbursement to escrow. Borrower brings the 10%. And then we pay the bank down about 45 or 60 days later. And the reason for that is because our notes are all essentially a government-backed bond. So we have to arrange for the sale of the bond in the secondary market, and that takes 45 days or so. So the borrower on a straight purchase will have a payment or two of interest only on that second note, right? They'll have a permanent first when you close, and then they'll have a 40% interim interest only second that they'll make a payment or two on, and then I take that out in like 45 or 60 days. Now on construction, which I would say almost 75% of the stuff we've done probably, right?
Oh, yeah.
Over the years, you and I. The construction stuff, I essentially just say, hey, when the building's done, I will come in and take out. So I'm basically giving the bank like a forward commit, saying, once you occupy the building, that's when I'm going to come in and pay you off. So although we'll quote to people like, hey, today's rate is 2.4%, the reality is, and we try to be very clear on this, you will get whatever the rate is in September 2021 when your project is complete and we take you out. So
what about with respect to fees? Like, what should somebody expect?
Yeah, let me you know what, actually,
do you want me to give you a share status?
I have it.
Okay, you can share the screen if you want.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, so you guys see that?
Yep. Well, it's popping up. There you go. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so here, I'll just go through this. So this is like a structure I just recently did for somebody. This is a $3.5 million straight purchase. So you can see, here's our project, right? If it had, and this is what something would look like that I would send to you if you were like, Chris, can you put this into a structure for me so I can see it? Usually if we had a TI, like an improvement component to the project, that would go in here. We can finance furniture, fixtures, and equipment into the project. Car washes, 25% of the car wash cost is equipment. So, I mean, that number can often be a pretty big number when we're doing those types of deals. We can include most of the soft costs, which are generally going to be kind of, I don't get super detailed on these, but, we can customize this as much as you want. So soft costs would include things like, obviously, appraisal, environmental, title. They can include things like interim interest, so that the note will be, during construction, it'll be, the interest will be paid for essentially by a line item. Sorry, guys, I just got a text that said, I have a deal that's supposed to close on Thursday. We ran into a pretty big snag on the bank. So.
We all got in that one.
Yeah. So anyways, all the soft costs will be kind of, built into here depending on how detailed you want it. Then moving down here, you'll see this is a 50-40-10, right? So it was this I can't remember what kind of building this one was, but it wasn't anything single use, obviously. So now if this was a car wash, for instance, this would be 35%. This would be 50, right? Our fees are down here. They look at first glance like they're a lot. They come out to be about 2.15% of my loan amount, and they're lumped on when we fund. So even if your borrower says, Dan, I want to write a $40,000 check, they can't. It's going to get lumped on no matter what. So it's a part of the loan. But the nice thing is that doesn't impact your loan to value. Right? If you do a 7A loan and you want to finance the fees in, it's part of the project. And so you got to look at that, and you could potentially have a shortfall and have to take someone out. We don't ever take any additional collateral, Dan, and that's a really nice thing about our program.
It's the distinction between the 7A.
That's easy.
Yeah. So they don't.
So if you have, like, for instance, if you have a doctor that's like, hey man, I got a $4 million house with no lien on it. Well, if he does a 7A loan, he's going to have a lien on it. That's oftentimes people will go, okay, well, how about 504? That'll alleviate that. So this gives you an idea what a fee structure would look like on a deal like this. And then our prepayment penalty is 10 years, which sounds like a long time, and it is, but if you take a look, it starts out at 1% of the principal balance, and it goes down 10% every year for 10 years.
It's kind of a sliding scale of the loan amount. I didn't even realize that it was 1%.
That's just today because the rates are so low. It's the note rate. This is what people are paying in interest on our loans right now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because I was like,
but once you lump in fees and everything, that's when it gets to 2.4.
Yeah, that's got it. Okay.
Then just real quick run through this, Dave. I'll just finish this up.
Yep.
Coming around back up to the top, I break down the two loan payments. I'll put the bank fee. The bank has to pay a 0.5 point to the SBA, so that's something to keep in mind, especially if you guys are trying to get paid through the bank, or how if you're trying to run your payment through the deal. Dave doesn't generally do that very much, but it's possible, and we can always talk about it. But this is oftentimes where that will get passed through. This is just like a market rate for banks these days. They're probably they're between 3.5 and 4.5%, right? These days on 10-year money. So this would be like a 10-year with a 25-year amortization. And then this is my term. This is a 25-year fully amortized note. This was last month's rate. It's now 2.4.
And remember that he locks at the time that his bond is closed and then he's implemented. So if it's construction, he's not going to lock anything until he actually goes in. So I quote it now, but it's actually not baked in until he's actually closed on it. So, but I mean, rates are obviously should be low for a while. So
yeah, and I mean they've come down. I mean, actually, last month was the first jump that we had all year. It was about a 15 basis point jump, but the previous drops were so dramatic that it just didn't really. I mean, 2.4 is still just amazing. So I mean that's. Yeah. In a nutshell, we're Dan. We're a nonprofit certified development company. We're an economic development company. So we've been around since 1978. Our mission is to promote job growth among small business, and so we use 504 to do that. Our offices are in San Diego, so I was pretty much the lone wolf out here. We just hired a new loan officer. Her name's Belinda. So you could work with either one of us. We're a team. What else was I going to say? I was going somewhere with that. Oh, I'm a former commercial banker myself. So I worked at JP Morgan Chase for a long time. So I've kind of done the bank side too. So if we get into the room with your borrower or on a call like this, I can talk about the way the whole thing comes together. I've now done several hundred of these. So I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, Chris is great, and has gotten lots of deals done that we love having him as a partner. And so the 504 really is, it's really good for bigger deals, construction deals, deals where people don't want to have seconds on there, or they want a long-term fixed rate. And so it's lower fees than a 7A. So it's generally a superior product to the 7A. The only distinction, I don't know if this has changed, is for a while you could only do purchase. Can you do refi now? Is that going to be a perpetuity?
Yeah. So we have refi.
Okay. So
the box is a little, it's not super generous. So the caveats for refi are, well, we've always had refi with expansion. I feel like you and I have done one or two of those. Refi with expansion is, for instance, if somebody owns a building and they want to double the size, we can take out that first loan, but the new money has to be, so if it's, let's just say they owed 500,000, the new money, the improvement money needs to be double that. So it needs to be $1 million. So you then have a $1.5 million 504. That's one thing that we've always been able to do. However, we did just about 18 months ago or 2 years ago, we got a true 504 refi program. The caveats to it are, it has to be a conventional loan. First, I mean, that's the 9 times out of 10, I get a refi call. Hey, I've got a 7A, can you take that out? Can't do it. So that's if anybody ever asks you about refinance and you start thinking 504, is it a conventional loan? And it has to have been in place for 2 years. And then lastly, they have to have 12 months on-time payment history. I have a really nice tool. It's busy. There's a lot of info on it, but I'll send you that when I send out the SOP, Dave.
That'll be great.
So you guys can have both of that. So you can, Dan, you can literally print that out and put it on your desk, and if refi ever comes up, you can pull that out and be like, oh, okay, it fits. You know.
That's great. Yeah, that's really helpful. That's very, very helpful, Chris. So we appreciate you taking the time. And I know Dan will be calling you here shortly on the self-storage deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's another, just since we're talking about that, I mean, Dan, that's another huge thing that sets us apart from 7A, is that last year I did a $38 million project. So we can do deals up to about that amount. 7A, you're done at $5 million. So you wouldn't even, you wouldn't be able to really even do this storage deal on a 7A.
Yeah, you can't. You can't.
So once we get back into hotel lending, I mean, most of the time hotels come to me. Most of the time the larger car wash stuff comes to me. So.
Yeah, he's great to work with. So we've always enjoyed working with Chris. So the last one we did with you was Culver's, if you remember. So.
Yeah, which we funded that one in August. So he got the CARES Act.
That's awesome. That's terrific.
And actually, I went there about 6 weeks ago, and it was the first time I ever had Culver's.
That's awesome.
We were driving up to Greer, so we cruised through there. I mean, have you seen it?
I've seen pictures. I haven't physically been out there.
That lot is